They have opened the floodgates, ladies and gentlemen. The floodgates are open. And this story, if you care about free speech, you definitely want to pay attention to, because it could happen to you. There's another executive order that Donald Trump just signed that could impact all of us, especially if you are pro-Palestinian. And that is the executive order to cancel student visas of pro-Palestinian protesters / the new anti-Semitism executive order. Now, you have to remember that Congress has been trying to change the definition of anti-Semitism to make it more broad. It also includes that you cannot criticize the state of Israel, the government of Israel, and that in itself is very problematic. So it doesn't matter if you are a student, it doesn't matter if you are a professor at campus, it doesn't matter if you're a YouTube commentator or whatever. This is something that I feel will impact anyone who is pro-Palestinian, because all it takes is for someone to try to snitch. And one of my big concerns is that I have a fear that you are going to see people make up stories about people or snitch on people that they don't like. In other words, ladies and gentlemen, I fear that we are going to enter a form of McCarthyism. Let's get into this clip here. We'll dive into it, folks.
And staying with the Trump administration, the president has signed an executive order promising action against international college students and others who took part in pro-Palestine protests during Israel's war in Gaza. His aggressive action aims to revoke visas of foreign students and prosecute offenders found to be Hamas sympathizers. The executive order also calls for the deportation of quote-unquote resident aliens who broke the law as part of the anti-Israel protests since the Hamas terror attack on October 7th of 2023.
Jewish students have faced an unrelenting barrage of discrimination, denial of access to campus common areas and facilities, including libraries and classrooms, and intimidation, harassment, and physical threats and assault.
Pause. For everyone who is Black that voted for Trump because you said he's going to look out for Black people, I don't see any executive order coming from Donald Trump to protect Black Americans, do you? Look who gets the protection. What have I tried to say over and over again? I haven't seen Congress. I haven't seen any presidential candidate or president or Congress move as quickly to protect any other group. This in itself should give you pause. This in itself should make you concerned. This in itself should make you wonder, what does your existence really matter here? No other group. None. Let's continue.
Now, under the order, federal agencies have 60 days to produce a report to identify all actions to curb anti-Semitism at U.S. colleges and universities. The order also empowers these educational institutions to monitor and report such students to remove them from the institutions.
So they are asking other students to report those students so that they can be removed from the campus. And if you are suspended from the campus and you're an international student, that means you're going back home because you will no longer be able to use your student visa. That's how it works. I'm telling you guys, it's one of these things where it will start at the universities and then it will spread to the workplace. Next thing you know, you don't work at a university. You could just work. Maybe you work at McDonald's. I don't know. Maybe you work at Starbucks, Burger King, whatever. And maybe you just say something that pisses somebody off and rubs them the wrong way. Next thing you know, you could be out of a job. This is next level McCarthyism. I am seriously trying to sound the alarm about this, folks. It's going to get to the point where you're not going to be able to trust your coworkers, where you're going to tiptoe around everything that you say, where you're going to feel like you're walking on eggshells. just like during McCarthyism. And they are going to have people round people up and snitch on them because this is their other way of silencing speech. Whether you agree with the protest or not, that is besides the point. The point is, this is an attack on free speech. And tomorrow they could be coming for pro-Palestinian protesters. And next thing you know, you won't even be allowed to protest for Gaza, which is probably coming. But then the next week, they're coming for you. Those who remain silent will be a part of the problem. Those who turn their head will be a part of the problem. Those who say, it's not my protest, I'm not involved. Those who turn the other cheek, you will be a part of the problem. It'll only be a matter of time before they come for you as well. And I damn sure know, and I sincerely hope that none of you would snitch on anyone participating in any of these protests.
In addition to identifying relevant authorities to curb or combat anti-Semitism generally required by this section, the Secretary of State, the Secretary of Education, and the Secretary of Homeland Security, in consultation with each other, shall include in their reports recommendations for familiarizing institutions of higher education with the grounds for inadmissibility, so that such institutions may monitor for and report activities by alien students and staff relevant to those grounds, and for ensuring that such reports about aliens lead, as appropriate and consistent with applicable law, to investigations and, if warranted, actions to remove such aliens.
Meanwhile, civil rights activists say President Trump's executive order is likely unconstitutional and paints peaceful protesters as terrorist sympathizers.
The Trump administration's attempt to smear the many Jewish, Muslim, Palestinian, and other college students who protested the Israeli government's genocide in overwhelmingly peaceful ways represents a dishonest, overbroad, and unenforceable attack on both free speech and the humanity of Palestinians, all for the sake of a foreign government. So is the administration's apparent threat to deport any foreign student who merely participated in anti-genocide protests.
So what people again have to understand is that they're changing that definition of anti-Semitism to make it more broad so that you can also say, well, they can say you criticize the state of Israel, so that's also anti-Semitic. And yeah, I'm going to snitch on you. All this protection for another country. So much to the point where they're willing to throw Americans under the bus because of it. But what you have to understand is this is not just about deporting college students who are here on a student visa, about that as well. You also have to understand that Donald Trump did something similar to this before. And I think maybe some people just didn't pay attention to it because this was before, obviously, October 7th happened. But in 2019, during his first presidential term, you have to remember Trump's anti-Semitism executive order. He did one before. Now, this one was a little bit different, right? Because he wasn't trying to like get rid of everybody and all that types of thing. But this part right here, President Trump signed an executive order on Wednesday expanding his administration's interpretation of race and national origin to include Judaism, a move that extends certain civil rights protections to Jews in education settings. So again, Judaism and Zionism is not the same thing. The move is part of the Trump administration's broader efforts to combat what it considers anti-Israel and anti-Semitic movements on college campuses. See, he did this before, but now it's gone a step further. But the order has ignited debate over federal funding, free speech, and views about Israel, and prompted renewed questions about how Jewish people should be classified by the government. Now, they were trying to use the section of the Federal Civil Rights Act of 1964. They were trying to use this, requiring federally funded educational institutions not to discriminate based on national origin. Under this, colleges and universities that support or tolerate anti-Israel movements, the most prominent being BDS, could be under threat, having their funding withheld by the Department of Education. So does everybody remember this from 2019? I feel like it didn't get as much attention because they've been doing this. He's been moving closer and closer towards this. And now you see where we are now. In fact, if we go back to 2019, this was the event where he signed that executive order. And look who's right behind him. Oh, it's the Patriots owner, Robert Kraft. Now, I'm a Patriots fan. I live here. I've been a Patriots fan for a long, long time. But Robert Kraft is an asshole. Never really cared for him. You have the owner of a football team right here behind Donald Trump. And there's Jared Kushner, whoever the hell he is, that weird looking dude. You got Jared, and then you have Yvonne here. Listen to this. 2019, just a reminder.
But today we're taking another historic action. In just a few moments, I'll sign an executive order to combat anti-Semitism. This action makes clear that Title VI of the Civil Rights Act, which prohibits the federal funding of universities and other institutions that engage in discrimination, applies to institutions that traffic in anti-Semitic hate. So this is a very powerful document that we're signing today, and it's been a very big story over the last number of days when they heard. As you know, they had almost universal support in Congress, and yet they didn't get it done. And this has gone on for years and years. They've almost had universal support, but there was always a roadblock. But this year there's no roadblock because I'm doing it myself. It's much easier. And we have support from many in Congress. This is our message to universities. If you want to accept the tremendous amount of federal dollars that you get every year, you must reject anti-Semitism. It's very simple.
So again, just a brief look there, that was 2019. So again, I think a lot of people forget that he did that during his first term against BDS. Now, don't get me wrong, the Democrats ain't no fan of BDS either. And this is another part of the problem where the Democratic Party has not stepped up to the plate, of course, because they're both pro-Israel. And this is how we end up with someone like Trump. And this is how we end up down the road that we're in. This is a free speech issue. And like I said before, I don't see an executive order to protect African Americans. Now, let's remember during Donald Trump's first presidency, did you guys see Trump issue any type of executive order to protect Black Americans when Black people were protesting out in the streets against police brutality? Nope. But you know what makes it worse? Joe Biden didn't want to do anything to really protect us either. He gave more money to the police. This is how you end up with another Donald Trump back in office. This is how you get back there, because the Democrats had that opportunity to say, okay, this is where he went wrong on this issue. We're going to fix it. But they can't do that because they're paid by the same freaking donors and they both support the police state. And none of the donors want the Black community to be protected. Oh, no, I didn't say that. But I did. None of these donors want the Black community to be protected. You can tell them I said it. We're not important to them. If anything, they're trying to get rid of some of us. We don't make enough money. We don't give them anything. We don't own enough businesses. We don't have enough wealth. If anything, the donor class is trying to get rid of Black Americans. And if that's the case, then that'll tell you right there why the politicians really put us last on their list, or we're not on the paper at all, boo. But there's good news to go along with this. I thought this was really good news today because something else is happening. 9 countries launch legal action against Israel over Gaza war. They're called the Hague Group. It's made up of 9 countries. Let's get into this. This could be the answer. I don't know. I told you got to start suing people. I really do think this is what it's going to come down to. Delegations from 9 countries gathered in The Hague on Friday, that was today, unveiled coordinated legal, economic, and diplomatic measures aimed at holding Israel accountable for its violations of international law amid mounting threats against the ICC in response to pressure from U.S. Congress, which has sought to sanction the ICC. There are 9 countries: Belize, Bolivia, Chile, Colombia, Honduras, Namibia, Senegal, South Africa, and Malaysia are forming a coalition known as the Hague Group to defend the legitimacy of international legal institutions and their rulings. Oh, snap. And one of the things that they mentioned here, this is good. I wish this would have happened sooner, but I'm glad it is happening. So one of the things that they said here is that the Hague Group was born out of necessity. It goes on to say, one of the things that they're fighting against, I wanted to put this down here, make sure I'm going to the right part. Sorry. They express its solidarity with the Palestinians by backing the formation of a Palestinian state. So this is new, a new coalition here. I think it's great. You have those 9 countries. Hopefully other countries can join as well. And there's one more part here. I just want to make sure I showed every part. Yeah. So that's new news. Their mission is to make sure that Israel does not continue to have the occupation. So that's one of the big ones that they're focused on. It says that they are going to have international pressure for sanctions and an arms embargo against Israel until the genocide ends. Palestinian national sovereignty and self-determination are secured, and an independent Palestinian state with East Jerusalem as its capital be established. So please pass on that news to your friends, guys. This is big news and it's new. 9 countries launch legal action against Israel over the Gaza war. But what do you do about the ignorance, right? Like, I want you to hear what this gentleman said here when he's talking about ignorance versus arrogance. And I thought this was pretty cool.
Look, Muslims need to understand when you're dealing with Western kuffar, you're not actually dealing with ignorance. There's a misunderstanding on our part. You're dealing with arrogance, not ignorance. Ignorance can be remedied by information. It can be remedied by education and so forth. You can teach ignorant people, but you can't teach arrogant people. Arrogant people cannot learn. They can't learn anything until they've been humiliated. And in fact, arrogance is always just the precursor to humiliation. And I think that that's what's happening right now with the West. They're kicking and screaming. You know, the West is kicking and screaming right now against the humbling process that's taking place before our eyes. Look.
I thought that was an interesting point there and a good way to end that segment. Is like, you can, teach ignorance, but you can't teach those that are arrogant. We'll have to stay tuned, and I'll continue to follow this, you guys, because again, I do consider this to be a free speech issue. And regardless if you agree with the protest or not, if you agree with free speech, I think you need to be concerned. Hey guys, this was a Sabby clip. If you like what you saw, hit that like button and subscribe.